Hello everyone, this is Miss Sue Ann from the University City Public Library, and today we have a really fun dance and play. And can you guess what we're going to be reading about and dancing about today? Can you see? Monsters. So before we get started, you know I like to sing and kind of say hello before we start. Are you ready? Come along and sing with me, sing with me, sing with me. Come along and sing with me at this happy story time. Come along and clap with me, clap with me, clap with me. Come along and clap with me at this happy story time. Come along and stretch with me, stretch with me, stretch with me. Come along and stretch with me at this happy story time. Come along and march with me, march with me, march with me. Come along and march with me at this happy story time. If you're ready for a story, clap your hands. If you're ready for a story, clap your hands. If you're ready for a story, if you're ready for a story, if you're ready for a story, clap your hands. If you're ready for a story, nod your head. If you're ready for a story, nod your head. Oh yes. If you're ready for a story, if you're ready for a story, if you're ready for a story, nod your head. If you're ready for a story, wave your hands. If you're ready for a story, wave your hands. If you're ready for a story, if you're ready for a story, if you're ready for a story, wave your hands. If you're ready for a story, say hello. Hello. If you're ready for a story, say hello. Hello. If you're ready for a story, if you're ready for a story, if you're ready for a story, say hello. Hello. Hello, everyone. Do you think we could do some monster moving? Before we start reading, let's pretend like we're monsters. Are you ready? Monster, monster, turn around. Monster, monster, touch the ground. Monster, monster, reach up high. Monster, monster, touch the sky. Monster, monster, touch your nose. Monster, monster, grab your toes. Monster, monster, touch your knees. Monster, monster, sit down, please. Are you all sitting down now? Are you ready to hear our monster stories today? Because I am ready to read. So our first story about monsters is actually called Yuck, That's Not a Monster. Somebody thinks one of these is not a monster. The author of Yuck, That's Not a Monster is Angela McAllister. Let's read and see. Mr. and Mrs. Monster were very proud of their 3 eggs. Mr. Monster kept them warm by huffing with his hot, stinky breath. Mrs. Monster screeched to them. That's a different kind of mommy and daddy, isn't it? One stormy night, the first egg cracked. Out climbed an ugly little monster with prickly spikes and snarly fangs. Ah, he's frightful, sighed Mr. and Mrs. Monster happily. So that's what they called him. His name was Frightful. Then the second egg cracked. Out climbed another ugly little monster with horny spines and bristly warts. Ew, she's horrid, gasped Mr. and Mrs. Monster happily. So that's what they called her. Her name was Horrid. Then the third egg shook a bit. Frightful and Horrid gave it a poke. Out crept something very soft and pink. "Ugh! He's sweet," said the little monsters. "Let's squash him." Do you want to squash that? "Well, he's not what we expected," said Mrs. Monster. "He is a bit of a shock." "Let's throw him in the trash can," said Mr. Monster. Suddenly there was a crash of thunder outside. "Mama!" cried the fluffy one and jumped into Mrs. Monster's arms. She looked down at her bundle of sweetness. "I think we'll keep him," she said. "He may look different, but inside he is a monster just like us." So they called him Little Shock. Each day, Frightful and Horrid grew hairier and scarier. They learned how to spit and hiss and snarl and scratch. But Little Shock grew more fluffy. He liked to gurgle and roly-poly and twinkle his big blue eyes. He loved his brother and sister, and he followed them everywhere. "If you want to play with us, you need to be wild and rambunctious," said Frightful and Horrid. They showed him how to howl at the moon, "Oh!" until it hid behind a cloud. But Little Shock was afraid of the dark. They showed him how to squash and stomp and trample. But Little Shock saw a worried worm and sat down to give it a hug. "Ugh!" sneered Frightful and Horrid. "He's just a cutie pie." Soon, Frightful and Horrid were bold enough to go monstering in the woods. "You must take your brother with you," insisted Mrs. Monster. Frightful and Horrid snorted grumpily, but they put Little Shock in a wagon, hid him under a blanket, and they tugged him along. So off they go into the dark forest. In the woods, Frightful leapt out at a fox and made its fur turn white. Grrr! Horrid pounced on a wild pig and made it jump into a tree. Rarg! They had a wonderful time. Little Shock hugged his blanket and played peekaboo with a mouse. "What shall we do now?" said Frightful. "Let's find something big to scare," said Horrid. Something big rustled in the bushes ahead, so they crept up on it. Frightful and Horrid saw a hairy hump. They winked at each other. They took a deep breath and roared! But the hairy hump was only a little bit of a big monster. It snarled and flashed its fiery eyes. "Who dared to roar at me?" Frightful and Horrid were too terrified to run away. Their spines shriveled and their claws curled up. Suddenly, the big monster spotted Little Shock. "Ooh, cotton candy," he said. Little Shock stared up at the monster's face. His big blue eyes grew wider and wider, and then, mwah! He gave the monster a kiss right on the cheek. Look at his face. What a surprise. Yuck! The big monster wailed and dropped Little Shock in horror. He was so afraid that his fur turned to frizz and his bristles fell out. "Help!" he cried. "It's adorable!" And he ran away, crying for his mommy. Frightful and Horrid couldn't believe their eyes. "You kissed him! You kissed him!" they laughed. Horrid swung her little brother high in the air and sat him on Frightful's shoulders. "Maybe being cute is useful after all," she said, giving him a pinch. Little Shock just purred happily. "Come on," said Frightful proudly. "Let's go home and all kiss Mom and Dad." think they're going to scare Mom and Dad too with a big kiss. And that is the end of Yuck, That's Not a Monster. I thought Little Shock was kind of cute, didn't you? So our next monster story today is a story written by the author Laurie Berkner. And Laurie Berkner wrote this story called Monster Boogie. Looks like it's dance time for the monsters. Let's see their monster moves. Are you ready? Monster Boogie by Laurie Berkner. Let's see how the Monster Boogie starts out. Ooh, it's dark. Can you see? There's two kids asleep in their room, and the door is going creak. Who's coming in the door? His eye peeks open. I'm the biggest monster that you've ever seen! My eyes are purple and my teeth are green. I'm big and scary, you know what I mean? And this is what I like to do. I do the Monster Boogie. The Monster Boogie. The Monster Boogie round the room. Everybody does the Monster Boogie. The Monster Boogie. The Monster Boogie. So can you. Looks like he's having a good time in his jammies, huh? 'Cause I'm the biggest monster that you've ever seen. My eyes are yellow and my teeth are green. I'm big and I'm hairy. You know what I mean? And this is what I like to do. I do the monster wiggle. The monster wiggle. The monster wiggle round the room. Looks like he's got lots of people wiggling with him, huh? Everybody does the monster wiggle. The monster wiggle. The monster wiggle. So can you. Can you? Can you do a monster wiggle and a monster boogie? How about we find out? Are you ready for some monster music? Let's do a monster boogie wiggle time today. Are you ready? Okay.
We are monsters stomping around the room. We are monsters stomping around the room. We are monsters stomping around the room. We snort, we snort, we roar. We're monsters clapping around the room. We're monsters clapping around the room. We're monsters clapping around the room. We clap, we snort, we roar. We're monsters shaking around the room. We're monsters shaking around the room. We're monsters shaking around the room. We shake, we snort, we roar. We roar. We're monsters sneaking around the room. We're monsters sneaking around the room. We're monsters sneaking around the room. We sneak, we snort, and roar. We roar. We're monsters stomping around the room. We're monsters stomping around the room. We're monsters stomping around the room. We stomp, we snort, we roar.
And that is the end of Monster Storytime from the University City Public Library. And we hope you have a monster good time. Bye-bye.